That is a fact, actually. Across the country, there is this pressure of having boys to carry on the lineage. It was more so in my case because dad was a businessman, a very successful businessman. And so her thought was that you need a boy to carry on the business. So it didn't make sense to me. That was not how we were raised. Regardless, we had two daughters, and yes, it was not very nice when she came into the hospital the first time and the second time and didn't have a happy face when she came in. It was a long face, a disappointed face. So
Oh, wow.
not very nice at that point of time. However, I think after you were born and a couple of months after you were born, I felt a little normal. Day and night started feeling like day and night. I think I sat with her and explained to her that it's the male chromosome that decides. So don't blame me, blame your son. So
Welcome back to Brown Girl Problems. This is our last episode of the season, and we're so excited that you joined us on this incredible journey. We've had such amazing guests, such incredible conversations, and this last episode is really special to me. We have a guest joining us, Reena Saldhi. She's a financial advisor here in Calgary. She's an advocate for women. She is the saree queen, and she's also my mom. And we're going to talk to her today about parenting, parenting across generations, values, and setting boundaries. So I'm really, really excited for this. Thank you for joining and keep watching. Okay, Mom, how does it feel to be here?
it feels great, exciting, and difficult to believe that I'm sitting on my daughter's podcast
I
here.
know. Well, I've been wanting to have you on for quite some time. This idea has been in my head because I've been talking to so many different people about parenting. And whenever people talk about the previous generation, they mostly mention that it's the very traditional, old-fashioned, conservative type of parenting. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think a lot of parents did that. But then when I reflect on my childhood, you're very different parents. You and dad.
Good, good.
So, I mean, I want to understand, like, were those all conscious decisions because of the way that you raised me and Anjani, the way that you kind of were still modern, the way you were like some things, of course, were traditional, but I don't know. I just feel like your outlook on parenting is very different than even some of my friends, their parents.
I don't know if it was conscious or not. I think it is always conscious up to a certain point, but basically it's deep down your thought process the way you are. So I think I was raised in a progressive family. My parents were very progressive in that sense. While being traditional in others, they were progressive in thought about what girls could do, what kids could do. This is back in India. So, for example, my older sister was encouraged to become a pilot. I was allowed to go to university in a university of my choice right across the country, which was typically not done at
I
that
encouraged, yeah.
time. So, in that sense, I think because I had that kind of a background, I wanted to make sure that I was able to pass it on to my children and give them the right atmosphere, a progressive atmosphere to grow in.
What about your husband?
My husband has been very, very supportive. He comes from a similar background. His father was in the army. My dad was kind of in the Air Force. So from the services, the mentality is slightly different, more open, more progressive, so to speak.
Okay.
So dad and I, we were together in every decision. And dad always encouraged me. I encouraged him in our decisions to raise our children.
And I guess going back to that time when you had, whether it was when I wasn't born yet or Anjani was, or you had two young kids, what were your non-negotiables when it came to parenting? What were things that you were saying like, this is for sure the way I want to do things. This is for sure what I want to encourage. Like, for example, if I think about the future, like, I'm thinking like certain meals I want to make for the kid, or certain family members I'm going to set boundaries with, or certain family members are allowed to do whatever. So there's certain things that we think about that come very innately. So can you remember if there was non-negotiables that you had to tell your family or dad's family that this is what's happening?
One of the things not very pleasant was my mother-in-law, your daddy, was kind of, I was under pressure to have a son, at least
Mm,
one. And for dad and me, it didn't matter whether we had two daughters, two boys, one each, that didn't matter.
mhm.
We wanted two kids. That was what we were sure about, healthy, normal, happy kids. And so we were particular about the kind of influence that any family member might have on our children
Mhm.
in that sense. I think Dadi was always there, Nani was there always, but we were mindful always to make sure that positive encouragement was always there for the children, nothing that could be wrong thoughts being put in the head. That would not
Yeah.
be something that would be encouraged.
But how did you deal with that pressure as someone who's had two kids, who's trying to navigate that in motherhood, and then you have someone saying, "Hey, by the way, you have to do one more until you."
Hit a boy.
Yeah, yeah, basically, keep going till you get a boy.
Well, like I said, we had decided we are going to have two kids.
Yeah.
And for us, in India, there is no gender testing that happens. So you don't know till the end
Right.
what you're going to have, right? So,
For a good reason. For
s-
similar reasons.
I guess so. So, and that is a fact actually across the country. There is this pressure of having boys to carry on the lineage. It was more so in my case because dad was a businessman, a very successful businessman. And so her thought was that you need a boy to carry on the business. So it didn't make sense to me. That was not how we were raised. Regardless, we had two daughters, and yes, it was not very nice when she came into the hospital the first time and the second time and didn't have a happy face when she
Hmm.
came in. It was a long face, a disappointed face, so
Oh, wow.
not very nice at that point of time. However, I think after you were born, and a couple of months when after you were born, I felt a little normal. Day and night started feeling like day and night. I think I sat with her and explained to her that it's the male chromosome that decides. So don't blame me, blame your son. So I explained to her that,
That
it's
was your
nothing.
explanation to that.
Well, not
That's
chromosome. I didn't use that word, but I said he decides, not me. So
that's so funny.
then she backed off.
Oh, so she didn't say anything to him that
I
you
don't
know
know.
of.
Not that I know of.
Wow.
He would have told her it just,
Yeah.
I think he would have told her.
He was always aligned with you about the fact that there's two kids. We don't care about the gender.
Sure. And in fact, the second time round, when I was pregnant, I was open to both. I said, if it's a boy, great. If it's a girl, great,
Yeah.
no problem. He was very insistent. He wanted a daughter again.
Oh,
So, yeah.
yeah. I mean, again, that's what I mean. It's so different than some of the stories we hear. And again, maybe it's because it's my profession, the work that I do, that I hear a lot of those stories where people have a very strong preference for a very specific reason.
Right.
It's not just like, oh, I want a boy and a girl or whatever. I feel like the moment you say, I want a boy and you're Indian or they see you're brown, whatever, it has a certain meaning.
Right.
It carries a certain, I don't know, weight to it.
It's the psyche of society.
Yeah.
It's the way society thinks that it's the male, uh, the boys that carry the lineage because the girl gets married into another family. But again, like I said, that's not how I was raised to think. We were brought up to be independent thinking and do what you want to, regardless of where you go. So
Mhm.
you are who you are. So shine wherever you are. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean, that's one pressure. What about parenting as a whole? Like you making parenting decisions?
A whole different
Yeah.
pressure
Because
altogether.
that's not just Dadi, that's not just your mother-in-law. That could be your mom, that could be society. You come from a very big family that was all very close to us when we were in India, so I'm sure there was a lot of opinions.
There were opinions. You have to be able to, when you belong to a large family, yes, you're all very tightly bound, but you're also able to draw the line where you want to. It's not easy,
Yeah.
but it happens
Okay.
and it's accepted. So you draw a line saying, listen, these are my kids. This is what I would like to do. And you deal with that. So it's not easy. People, for example, like I said, when my sister was encouraged by my dad to be a pilot, my grandma had a lot of objection. She just was so strong about the fact that no girl in the family should be a pilot. And she had her reasons. But my dad said, no, this is how I would like my children to do what they want to do. So you have to draw the line. Sometimes it is a little tough, but then they understand.
But how did you draw that? Because, I mean, you're this version of you now who is very confident and secure. I feel like as a new mom back then, when people are giving you parenting advice, that can feel daunting and you don't really feel that confident.
Yes, but I also feel, in hindsight, when you become a mother, there's some inner strength that comes naturally. I don't know where it comes from, how it comes, but it does. And whether it's a sixth sense, whether it's a strength that you call, when it comes to your children, a mother becomes very possessive.
Right.
Regardless. Whether it is even your own mother, or whether it's your husband's mother, or whether it's a friend or a family, you would stand up and say, this is what I want for my child. And that's what you would do. So you would be able to handle it, I think.
I mean, I think obviously with your mom, you can have sometimes those conversations with the mother-in-law, because I mean, I know your mother-in-law. So I'm
Not
like,
easy.
it's not easy to navigate that, especially because you and her were so different.
Yeah.
And you had I don't know her full history. I never really got to know that, but I don't think she was raised in the same way you were raised.
No, definitely not. And she was, she had her views the way a lot of people have the views about what girls can do, what should be done and what shouldn't be done. So, for example, when y'all were younger and I wanted to put y'all into, whether it was dancing classes or whether it was other courses that I wanted y'all, we used to take you out skating. She did object to it, but I knew that at that time Anjani was there and I knew she enjoyed skating. She loved it.
Yeah.
And if it ever became more difficult for me to tell her something, I would tell Dad.
Yeah.
And he would explain to her. And we did what we had to for our children.
So it sounds like, I mean, the consistent thing is that you and Dad just had to be very aligned in all these parenting decisions.
That I think is important.
Yeah.
That's true.
Because how else can you I guess defend your choices if you needed to defend them without your
Right.
partner also defending
No,
them?
the partner, I think parenting has to be in partnership. If the husband and wife are not together in what they want for their child, I think the child will suffer. There's no
Yeah.
doubt about that, because you end up fighting. The child is watching you. You're not able to do what the child is looking to do, for example, skating or a particular dance or
Yeah.
a class that they want to go. So definitely the two have to be together
Yeah.
in your decision making.
Were there any times that you guys weren't and you had to compromise or had to give in? I'm just seeing how you navigate that, because it sounds like, everything. Thankfully, you and Dad were on the same page, but I'm assuming in any relationship, there's difference of opinions.
Can I stop this for a minute?
Yeah. It's okay. Sorry, I threw you a curveball.
I don't know. I know you're trying to get me to talk about the challenges that we had.
Yeah, because everything's lovely, which is great, but
I know, but no, but I said so much about my mother-in-law. That's not lovely.
If you and dad were mostly on the same page, what are other things that you feel like you had to push back on and you had to really take a stand at that time?
One of the things that comes to mind is I don't know if you know of this ceremony called Mundan.
Yeah.
So when Anjani was born, I thought she was the cutest baby ever. She had the sweetest of everything, but she had very nice hair. And when I was told that the Mundan had to be done,
Wait, explain what a mundan is and maybe the
So-
significance.
the Mundan is when the baby hair is all removed. And I guess the significance of it is to take there's
Like the
something about the
rebirth or something.
birth
Yeah.
hair to be removed or something. We never had it done. So when I was young, or anybody of my siblings, none of that was done.
Hmm.
So to me, I didn't agree with that concept. So there was a lot of pressure. Like I said, dad was a big businessman, and everything was being watched by not just family, but people around.
Yeah.
And everyone was constantly like, when is the mundan? And I said, I'm not getting a mundan done.
Even for girls, they have that.
Even for girls to do that.
Yeah.
Now, if I don't have a son, then if
Okay.
so that was something I put my foot down on. My mother-in-law was a little upset about that. I had to tell her, no, this is not something that I would like to do to my daughter. I think she's got great hair. I don't want to chop it all off.
But I'm guessing that conversation didn't just end there. Like, I'm sure
She wasn't happy.
Yeah.
She did voice her, that she's not happy about it.
Yeah. And how did you deal with it?
I had to let her know that I'm not agreeing to it. It wasn't a pleasant situation for a while, but when she understood that this is what I'm being keen, I was adjusting on most things. But when I put my foot down on something, I put my foot down. I did not give in to having Anjani's hair being cut.
Yeah.
And then when it came to you, then I said, of course, why? When it didn't happen for one, why would I do it for the other?
Yeah.
So
then it got easier the second time
then it
around.
got easier.
Yeah. And we talked about your mother-in-law, but your mom is very modern in some ways, but also a little more conservative than you are, obviously. What did you have to push back with her and your dad, like with your parents?
So with her, one thing that I was very particular about is that I will not go in for an arranged marriage. My eldest sister had an arranged marriage. I would say all my cousins, and in that day and age, I think most girls in India had arranged marriages. I did not see myself typically the way it was done. So the guy comes to see this girl where it's like you're an object under a microscope. I did not like that. You bring a tray of tea and serve it around. And to me, that wasn't me. I was
Yeah.
not going to do it.
But you saw your sister go through that.
I saw my sister go through that as much as she didn't want to. But when I saw it so close and upfront, I realized this is not something I can do. You do it once and somebody either agrees or doesn't like you. And so there's a yes or a no, and then the next one comes, and then the next one. That's ridiculous. So
Yeah.
to me, I didn't see myself doing that. So when this was brought up for me that there's certain boys we'd like you to see, I said, I'm not going through that process. So I did push back on that and found myself a nice boy, introduced him to my parents. Fortunately, everything worked out well there. So,
Yeah. And he was very scared of your dad.
He was very scared. He definitely was.
Yeah.
He definitely was.
But then you won him over, of course.
He's a nice guy with a good heart. So
Yeah. You
it
won
all
him
worked
over.
out.
Yeah, of course. So, now switching gears a little bit, we've talked about your parenting. You have a daughter now who has her child. So your older daughter, Anjani, has a 2-year-old. How was it watching her go through this? Like, how is it becoming a grandma?
There is no feeling in the world that can match the joy of being a grandma. I say that with no doubt. It is just the most beautiful feeling. Yes, when you see your child go through situations where, you know, during pregnancy, there's ups and downs. You see them go through that, it hurts you as a parent, but then, it's all part of process. But it's the best feeling, becoming a grandma. So
Yeah. Do you see similarities in her parenting style? Like, do you feel like that's kind of how you were at that age? With like,
times have changed completely.
Yeah.
Times have changed completely. I think we live in such a different world to what it was 25 years back or 30 years back. There was no internet, there was no computers, these fancy toys that you have now. Just to compare, like I said, dad was doing very well in his business. So we were a well to do family back in India. You all had all the fanciest toys. But those toys, I think, made sense for kids, like nowadays I see all these very fancy toys and I wonder, do kids really need them? I think kids grow happily, kids grow naturally. But yeah, I think in the sense of parenting between the two, between me and Anjani, I'm very proud of the way she's bringing up her daughter. I love the way she's training her daughter, encouraging her to do things, encouraging her to, just encouraging the way she talks, the way she plays, the way she's every activity of her.
She's
So,
very present.
yeah, definitely.
Both of them are. They're very
Yeah.
present with her, which I
Right.
think is amazing.
Right. I agree. Yeah.
Do you see any major differences between the way that they do things, the way that you and dad, or mostly you, did things?
Some of the things I think I would say, which I see are different, are one of the major things, which could be because of the times we are in, is don't give any sugar till she's 2 years old. To me, I don't understand that. I think the child should be exposed to every taste, whether it's a salt or a bitter or a whatever.
Yeah.
But I guess they have their reasons for doing what they do. But yeah, I think just the way she goes about her activities, like you said, she's very present and encouraging and supportive. So I love seeing that.
Has seeing her become a parent kind of made you reflect in any way about parenting in general? Because I mean, being a grandma is a very different than being a mom. I think you get to do a lot of different things, but like actually seeing her parent her child, even when she disciplines her a little bit, all of us have to take a step back because we just want to jump in. But has that changed the way you kind of reflect about being a parent?
I think, the challenges of a parent will always be there at every stage. And to me, when I look back at the journey, I think might be going off topic a little, but one of the most challenging phases of being a parent is when your child is in high school.
Yeah.
And the child suddenly feels like a grown up, is suddenly exposed to so much. There's so much peer pressure. There's all of that the child is going through. But as far as your relationship with the child, this child suddenly thinks they know it all and is talking back and, is in that phase. And you have to really keep your calm and listen, because as much as they are arguing and fighting back with you, they're also very vulnerable at that time. So I think listening to basically what they're trying to say is very important. When I think of parenting, I think that high school phase is one of the most challenging ones. I
Yeah.
definitely would think so.
I would agree. I mean, from your perspective. From mine, I mean, I think we probably have different perspectives and different memories. I don't remember it being that bad, but I think there's some moments where it definitely was pretty bad. I think it was with two daughters who are, yeah, going through it. Two very
No,
different
it's
girls, too.
two very different girls. It's just that phase. once you all got into university, and then again, talking about, my kind of parenting or our kind of parenting, dad and me, I encouraged my girls to go out of the house for university. You went to Waterloo. Anjani was in York, even though we were there, but you went to Toronto to work while we moved to Calgary. Anjani stayed back and worked for a couple of years there and finished university. So, in my typical family, I don't think that would be allowed, but we encourage that.
Yeah.
And I was very sure that I wanted in university, the girls should be out of the house. That's the time you figure out who you are, discover who you are, know what your roots are, while being exposed to so much. So you stumble and fall, but you pick yourself up, and that is the right age to do it, in my opinion, again.
How did you have the faith, though, that things wouldn't derail?
Go backwards,
Yeah.
go down.
No, honestly, because I think that's every parent's fear, right? Sending
that's the
child out in the wild and hoping that they make the, I mean, of course, not every decision made was the right one or whatever it is, but how did you have faith that it would be fine and we would come back in a mature way?
There's never a guarantee, but again, it's your gut feeling, it's your sixth sense, it's your inner strength, and all those years of, when your time spent at home, while you're playing, while you're teaching, while you're doing everything, certain boundaries are not crossed, and you're insistent on that through the years. And that is the time it's tested. And that's the time you have to trust your child. Like I said, they will fumble, they will fall, hopefully pick themselves up and move in the right direction. To be expected. And I think as a parent, you have to be a little, step back and not be critical or, shouting or doing that kind of thing when you see them make a mistake, because that's what you're letting them do. When they go out of the house, they will make those mistakes, but they learn from it soon. You have to trust them on that. It's not easy. Like I said, that's the most difficult phase. But that's where your patience, your trust, your support, your sensitivity with what they are saying, all of that comes in.
I mean, I think we've talked about this even in the past. I brought it up. I was like begging you to stay. I was like, please let me commute. I was like, and all my friends were trying to leave. I was like, I don't want to leave yet. I didn't think I was ready, but I still say, and even that, I think you basically forced me to pick Waterloo I wanted to pick a smaller university because it was so intimidating. We went to campus. So you made two decisions for me, basically that you're going here and you're moving out. And I think it was the best decisions you could have made for me.
I think the kind of person you are today, the fact that I'm sitting here talking to you, is because of that.
Yeah, I would agree. I really did not. I think I was a very different version of myself. I mean, everyone is, but
Everyone is,
I don't
exactly.
think I don't think I would have described myself as an independent person growing up.
And
until Waterloo.
There you go. And that's because I was exposed to that. I went to university back in India, which was a very difficult thing to do. And right across the country, it was like you could come home in an hour or two. I couldn't.
Yeah.
I had to wait for my summer break or the winter break before I could get back home because it was so far away. But that's where I found who I was. And that's where I figured out life, so to speak. And that's why I knew I had to do it for my children. And that's why, if, like you were asking before, if there was opposition, those were things where I was strong. And I said, no, this is what we are doing.
Yeah, because even when I spoke to like Nana and my grandma on the phone during that time, she was saying, oh, aren't you so close to other universities? Why don't you go there? I remember speaking to your sister, and she's very strong. Everyone in your family is, but they were like, why are you going so far? Like they were asking me, and I was like, I don't know why I am. My mom chose me this. So even your family was telling me
Yes.
from India, like, why are you going 2 hours away? Why don't you pick a closer university? And I was like,
Because I knew that for what you were looking to do, Waterloo was the right place.
mm-hmm.
I think for your kind of intellect, Waterloo was the right place. And I felt a vibe there where I felt you would be happy. So,
Yeah, I mean, you picked up on it before I did. I think when Dad and I went to that campus tour, we both were like, this is too big. It's too much. Don't go here. Yeah, it was just such a mess of a day, I think, that we were just so against that. But then you were like, yeah, too bad you're going there.
no, I
And I
think,
mean, Dad encouraged it, of course.
yeah,
He
yeah,
definitely did. He
yeah.
definitely,
But you liked it. You loved it
oh
in
yeah,
the
of
end. Yeah,
course. I
yeah,
loved it.
yeah.
But I want to go back to talking about you becoming a grandma for a second. I want to ask, how does it feel to now be on the end where someone is telling you no? Like, we've talked so much about where you've had to put your foot down with your mom or mother-in-law. How does it feel when your daughter is now saying, no, mom, we're not going to give sugar, or we're not going to do this, or we are going to sleep train? And, how does that feel?
It doesn't feel nice. It feels difficult.
Yeah.
But if that's what they want to do for their child and they have the right reasoning for it, obviously they feel strongly for them to be insisting on it. So I have to respect that. Much as I don't like it, I have to respect it.
How do you not take it personally, though? I feel like I would. That's why I'm asking.
You wouldn't. You wouldn't because, well, you would, but at the end of the day, you wouldn't because finally they are parents doing what they think is right for their child.
Mm-hmm.
And unless, as a parent, unless as their parent, I see something being done that is wildly wrong, I wouldn't want to step in more than I need to.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you've always been very good at boundary setting from what I've seen. Has that always been the case, or was there a specific time you learned to set those boundaries?
I think I learned it as a parent, honestly. I was, as a child, I was not a very strong person, so to speak.
Yeah.
I was very easy. I got bullied. I got pushed around. I was that kind of person. But then, like I said, when you become a parent, as a mother, I feel there's a strength that comes from within, and you fight for your child. You become the protector, and you do whatever it takes. So when we had to move from India to here, that was not an easy
Mm-hmm.
time. You might remember in India we had all the maids and
Yeah.
servants and cooks, and we came here, and for the first time ever it was just the four of us. It had never happened in India. But I wasn't great at cooking. I wasn't but you learn
Yeah.
because you have your kids dependent on you.
That was one of your things earlier on, though, right? That you didn't want to be the cook or something.
I was definitely so. What when you had asked me what was one of the things that I pushed back on, cooking was one thing. I said, why do I need to learn cooking if I will find a guy who can get me a cook to cook for me? So I didn't want to learn cooking when I was younger. But as a mom, you do it.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, it's not as if you're forcing yourself to do it. You do it because you have to do it. And when you do it, you want to be the best at it because you
Yeah.
want to give your kids healthy food. You want them to have the right kind of diet, the right kind of nutrition. It comes naturally, I think.
You are a very strong advocate for your kids. I will say, in the family, the way you've described yourself in the past is very passive. And I think that's changed. I think you are very patient. I think you are passive in the sense that you are not, a very reactive person, but you are very strong when it comes to certain things. Like, even if I can mention that every time we'd go to India and I would get tanned, I would get a lot of comments about because I'm darker than you and Anjani, which is fine, but I've never had that thing about I didn't even know what colorism or these terms were. Again, way later in life because I never felt it. But I remember family members. I remember my grandma bringing me like the boxes of lightening cream just to be like, put it on. And you never encouraged it.
I think.
And that was your side of the family too, right? Like that wasn't dad's, that was your side too. So that was somewhere you had to push back on your own parents.
Of course.
Well, your
And
mom. I don't think your
yeah,
dad was
yeah.
involved in that.
No, I find that very offensive. Why would someone's a particular color, my child, and that's her natural beauty. Why should I change it?
But
To
you see
me?
how different that is, even coming from the person who raised you. You have such different values from, right? So like that's what I mean. It's so hard. I mean, I remember that moment very clearly because you were very offended on my behalf. I didn't know I didn't understand the emphasis. Also, when you're a kid, you're tanned, like you don't think deeper into it. I think I was 13 and I was tanned and I was like, yep, this is great. But you were very offended. And I feel like that's where people have that trouble where it's like you feel so strongly about something, but how do you go against someone who is,
Is your mom?
is your mom?
I wonder now if something similar might happen with Anjani and my dear little granddaughter.
I don't think in this topic or anything, no. But yeah.
But yeah, again, it is, I guess, when we moved to Canada, it was just the four of us. The protection came out and nobody could do anything to my children. I guess that's what it was.
Yeah.
And as far as color and things go, to me, I find that ridiculous. To me, it's as ridiculous as you must have a son. So
Yeah.
it compares to that.
Yeah.
Why should somebody have to be fair? Why does a girl have to be fair?
Yeah.
Not something I advocate. So.
I know, and that's where I learned it because I remember that. I mean, you were offended by it. Dad wasn't there, but I don't think he would have encouraged that either. I think he would have just been like throw it away, like quietly. He would have just said something. But yeah, you both have been on the same page about those things. Even though he's less vocal about it, I think he has those values. And that took me a long time to understand too as a kid because he is less vocal about the way you explain things.
And that's something I've struggled with too.
Yeah.
While we are together on basically how we want to raise our kids, because he's not so vocal and because he's just, okay, that's fine, that's okay. But for example, in high school, we had to, like I say, you have to pick your battles. So in high school, your child might be doing 10 things, and of 10, you might have an objection to 8. That's how it is in high school. But you have to pick your battles and let maybe of the 8, 5 of them just go and say, no, these 3, there is no compromise on.
Yeah.
And that's why you need your husband to be with you, because you can't be the monster all the time. Mom becomes the monster. So, yes, he wasn't so vocal.
But he was always present.
He was present.
Yeah. He was always present. That's for sure. Okay. So that brings us close to the end. I have one last question for you that we ask every guest. If you could give advice to your younger self, what advice would you give her? It doesn't have to be about parenting, but anything in the world. What would you tell the younger version of you?
I would, like I said just a few minutes back, I was very passive. I used to get bullied. I used to, even by my siblings. If someone said something to me and I was hurt, I would cry. If someone said something to me and I was angry, I would cry. I didn't know how to speak up. So I would tell that younger version of me to be stronger, to recognize who you are and feel proud of who you are and speak up.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely found your voice.
I found my voice. Fine.
Yeah. And your kids definitely found their voice because you found yours. And I think a lot of people, a lot of women struggle with that. So I'm
Yeah,
glad you did.
I agree. That's true. A lot of women definitely do. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, you survived. Thank you for being on the episode. This was our last episode of the season. So this is how we wanted to end off, was with you kind of imparting your wisdom. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here and so proud to be here.